825. Oh, one of the all-time favorite groups of mine. It's George Clinton, not Bill Clinton, the former president. On the line right now, Celeste Katz. She's the journalist. She's the go-to gal. She's the columnist and blogger for the New York Daily News. If you're into politics and it flows through your veins and arteries, people will wake up and immediately check to see what you have posted, Celeste. That's how much juice you have in this political community. Good morning.
Good morning, Curtis. Thanks for having me on the show.
Okay, so we have three levels of...
This is Special Relationship. I'm John Prideaux from The Economist.
And I'm Celeste Katz from Mike. Today, we're talking about the ad wars. Election season means everyone's trying to win your heart and get your vote. And there are a million ways to do it. Before, you had TV, radio, and good old snail mail. Now we also have Twitter, Facebook, Tumblr, Snapchat, Instagram, text messages, bots. So if you want to win, you have to come up with the magic formula, some perfect combination of all of these things.
I just always have believed that you need to hit the gut as well as the head.
That's Jimmy Siegel. He's a veteran strategist who's created ads and campaigns for President Obama, Hillary Clinton, and many other politicians.
Well, an effective ad is you see that people are talking.
Joining us now to try and figure out what happens next on the left is Howard Dean, the former governor of Vermont. His 2004 run for the presidency set much of the foundation for what's going on in left-flank Democratic politics and campaigning today. And he's now supporting Hillary Clinton for the presidency. Governor Dean, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me on.
So we wanted to ask you a little bit about Hillary Clinton and whether you think she's a different candidate now than the person who ran in 2008.
She's a very different candidate. I think in a variety of ways. First of all, I actually think the Sanders campaign, the Sanders challenge has been great for Hillary. It's, I think, brought a whole series of issues that are critical to the American people, mostly having to do with income inequality. It's sharpened her, but it's been very tough on her, of course.
How do you mean?
Well, this is a tough campaign. Bernie's run a great campaign,
This is Special Relationship, a podcast from Mike and The Economist. I'm Celeste Katz from Mike.
And I'm John Prideaux from The Economist.
Today we're going to be talking about Brexit. The Brexit vote might seem like a strange topic for a podcast on American politics, but bear with us.
Essentially, Brexit is about Britain voting to leave the European Union.
Joining us now is Robert Tuttle. He served as United States Ambassador to the United Kingdom from 2005 to 2009. Ambassador Tuttle, thanks for talking with us.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So a partisan divide has already opened up over Britain voting to leave the European Union. And the White House made it clear before that vote that the administration would really prefer if Britain had stayed in, had chosen to remain. But a lot of conservatives are actually very excited about this. They're celebrating it as a kind of a second Independence Day. So our question is, why should Americans really care about this? What does it mean to us?
Well, it means a great deal to us because of our long and
statement, and then, make everyone really comfortable that I'm okay.
Political correspondent Celeste Katz is covering the Giuliani campaign for the New York Daily News. And Celeste, Rudy Giuliani, they're referring to his bout with prostate cancer, diagnosed back in 2000, and one of the things that made him drop out of the New York Senate race against Hillary Clinton at that time.
Yes, that's right. He is going to have his doctor give a full report after Christmas that he says will basically explain that he's in excellent health. He went through a battery of tests. He said he's also awaiting some additional cancer tests. But for the most part, he says he's in absolute great health. He feels fine, and that the doctor's report will explain that.
Rudy Giuliani has been pursuing an unconventional strategy in this race. He's pretty much been ignoring Iowa. He's been spending some time in New Hampshire, but not a ton, and he's looking for this national strategy. He's putting a lot of money and effort on Florida, which doesn't vote until January 29th. Can this work, do you think?
Well, I think that people are asking that question a lot lately, and some of them may be within the Giuliani campaign. But it's also important to remember that President Clinton did not place first in New Hampshire, and George Bush lost the New Hampshire primary to John McCain in 2000. And McCain looks like he's actually getting a lot more traction in New Hampshire right now. So it's not necessarily a prerequisite to win the Iowa caucus or the New Hampshire primary, but it certainly does help build up a sense of momentum. Giuliani's, I don't know if you want to call it gambling, but he's sort of looking towards a strategy that shows him doing better in some larger, later voting states. Whether it will work, I guess I'll have to buy a paper myself to find out.
Time will tell. Celeste Katz, political correspondent for the New York Daily News. Celeste, thanks very much.
Thank you for having me.
What I did for New York, Donald Trump will do for America.
I sat down with Mayor Giuliani in Cleveland. We discussed not only the dust-up over Mrs. Trump, but also the campaign at large.
I thought Mrs. Trump's speech was quite poetic, quite beautiful. I thought her expressions about her parents were roughly the same as what I would say about my parents. I was blessed to have two good parents. And I think they were kind of almost generic comments. They're the kind of comments that people make when they have two good parents. So far, they haven't found anything wrong that I said in my speech, but maybe they'll find something wrong I said.
One thing Mayor Giuliani tried to do during his speech was to urge the Republican Party to unite behind Trump and focus on the ultimate goal, beating Hillary Clinton in November. But Mayor, I mean, if you look at the campaign, I mean, I'm gonna, you know me, I'm gonna work you over a little bit on this.
You can work me over.
You're talking about Trump, and I'm saying, number one, some people think that he's no good on foreign policy.
Well,
and
okay.
Some people think he's scary.
So the reality is that this is exactly what they thought of Ronald Reagan. And he probably was our best president on foreign policy in the last 50 years since he ended the Cold War without firing a shot. But I also think he does know the world. He's been around the world. He's traveled the world, which, for example, President Bush 43 hadn't done as much as, let's say, Donald Trump. Obama had been in about 3 or 4 countries before he became president.
Yeah, but Mayor, speaking of, I mean, if you're gonna mention President or the President's Bush, they're not at this convention. I mean, what does that say about the party? There are people that are staying away from this convention, and it's because of some of the rhetoric here.
Mm-hmm. The last poll that I saw said 30 to 32% of Democrats will not vote for Hillary Clinton.
The last poll I saw said 4% of blacks would vote for Donald Trump. The day before Trump was to accept the nomination, the last primary rival he defeated, Ted Cruz, sent the convention into yet more chaos. Cruz got booed by Trump supporters for refusing to formally endorse him from the podium at the Quicken Loans Arena. The delegation from New York was not happy with him at all.
I appreciate the enthusiasm of the New York delegation.
The ironic thing about all of this, or one of the ironies, was that Cleveland had braced for mass protests and even possible violence of the kind seen at Trump rallies across the country. Yes, there were some protests, sure, but they were mainly peaceful, and actually pretty small compared to the demonstrations here in Philadelphia. The police only made a handful of arrests, and aside from some road closures and checkpoints, the kinds of things you might see at any high-security event, the city of Cleveland functioned remarkably well, even with Donald Trump around. So in a way, Trump, the chaos candidate, almost seemed to generate more bad feelings inside his own party than outside the convention bubble. And that held true even among his supporters after the Ted Cruz incident. It wouldn't have been a Trump show without a big helping of drama and plenty of plot twists. And it certainly gave us all of that. Whatever you think about him, Donald Trump is really not like any other U.S. presidential candidate, at least in my experience. Some people say Donald Trump rewrote the playbook on how to run for president. But sometimes, as was the case at the Republican National Convention, it seemed like he didn't really have one. But if conventions are like the candidates they're supposed to sell, looking back, maybe this year's RNC ended up being pretty much exactly what we should have expected. Thanks, Cleveland.
Joined in studio by Celeste Katz, senior political correspondent for Mike. They have a brand new poll out. We'll get into that. But first, from the campaign trail, does it feel good to be home for a change?
It's always a pleasure to be back here in New York City, but it is fun being out and about and watching these guys go at it, sure.
What's not talked about is what's the life of a reporter on the campaign trail.
Well, it depends. I
You
mean,
guys never get the spotlight, nor should you. You should write the story.
Yeah.
But let's talk about you for a minute and being on the campaign trail.
Well, I mean, there's sort of two different lifestyles on the campaign trail, I guess you could say. One of them is in the bubble, and one of them is outside the bubble. So if you're in the bubble, then you're flying around on a plane with the candidate, and they're, serving you food, and they're carting you here and carting you there and herding you like cattle, and you're running in and out, and, maybe like 3, 4, 5 cities a day.
Right.
And then if you're not in the bubble, then, you're in your rental car, driving.
Chasing the candidate.
Yeah, basically like,
Who
driving
are you
with
out
one
with?
hand. And, I've been out in, we did a lot of geographic coverage. So I've been out, South Carolina. Well, started out in Iowa, spent some time there.
I remember that. It was cold.
Yes, it was.
You were cold.
Wisconsin was kind of chilly and rainy too. Spent some time there, and it's a fascinating thing. It's really a great experience, and I'm lucky that Mike is supportive of that. But sometimes it really is like literally driving with one hand, eating Wendy's with one hand, texting with one hand, which do not text and drive, but that sort of thing.
Right. Well, you can dictate the text.
Exactly.
I use the technology. It gets me around a little bit better.
You can listen to satellite radio.
Exactly. See, this is how it works. We've known each other a long time. It's good to have you here in the studio, Celeste Katz, who is senior political correspondent at Mike, and you're in a new partnership with The Economist.